Hi guys, so for this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a cat eye cut crease. So the first step I do for any makeup look is I start off with skincare. So I'm putting jojoba oil because it's really great at sealing in any moisture. So the first product I'll be using is the Morphe Brow Pomade as well as the Anastacia Beverly Hills Pomade. First, I start in the middle of my brow, and small strokes are super important to make sure that it's really precise. I personally have relatively straight eyebrows. I don't have much of an arch, but you still want to make sure you're going in with small, even strokes with your eyebrow brush, and you want to diffuse any intensity with the spoolie of your eyebrow brush. Any mistakes that you made or any smudges can just be cleaned up with concealer later, so don't worry about it too much. The harder part for me personally is making sure the other side looks the same. So definitely sisters, not twins. Next, I'm going to be going in with the shade from the James Charles palette from Morphe. This is just going to carve out my brows a little bit more and add some depth. This concealer is the Sephora Make No Mistake concealer. It's literally the only concealer in the world that has really matched my skin tone exactly. It has warm undertones, and I love using it to carve out my eyebrows because it blends into my foundation really nicely. I'm using a flat concealer brush to carve them out, and I'm starting in the middle and doing, again, really small, precise strokes. You want to build up that straight line. You don't want to just do it in one go because if you make a mistake, it'll be harder to fix. Then I'm just blending it into my eyelid area because that's going to blend with my primer later on. You can also clean up the top by using anything that's left over from what you used for the under part of your brow. I wouldn't add any more because then it could get a little cakey. Anything left over on your brush can just be used to clean up any smaller areas or even emphasize more of your arch. You're done. Next, I'm going to be going in with the P. Louise base in shade 2. This formula is best applied with a patting motion. It's really great at grabbing pigment, but I feel like if you rub in the product too much, it just slides around. Eventually, it does dry to a matte and it holds color beautifully. Taco Bell break. Next, I'll be using the Jaclyn Hill Volume 2 palette in the shade Perfectionist. This is a great transition shade. Anytime you use a transition shade, you really want to start low and build your way up. And I start off with patting motions because it helps build the pigment and then I blend. But honestly, the number one thing that's going to help you is just blending, blending, blending. Soto. Yep, still blending. Since we are doing a cat eye cut crease, we're going to be extending that transition shade a little farther out than we're used to. This is going to help make everything look a little more diffused and blended. Next, we're going to be going into the shade Thick Skin. That's a lot of fallout, but the pigment's worth it, so it's okay. Now we're going to be focusing that darker shade closer to our natural crease. If you have hooded eyes, you're going to want to go a little bit more above than where your crease naturally lays. A tip I tell people with hooded eyes is to slightly raise your eyebrows and feel around for your eye socket with the eyeshadow brush. That's where your real crease is. And again, we want to extend that color a little farther out than normal because we're going to be cutting out that cat eye. And make sure you repeat on the other side and make sure everything is equally as blended. The next shade we're going to be using is the shade Homebody, which is really fitting because #quarantines, and we're going to be using a denser pencil brush. If you have hooded eyes, again, you don't want to put this on your natural crease line. You want to go right where your eye socket is and emphasize that depth. Make sure you use a light hand because you don't want to move around the other shades that you had previously. Blend again using the brushes that you used for the other shades. Moment of truth. Now we're going to be cutting the crease. So I'm using the exact same eyeshadow base, the P. Louise in shade 2, and the same concealer brush. I'm putting it over my regular lid space. Hooded eye trick, raise your eyebrows, put your chin down and look up. That helps you find where your actual crease is. Using small strokes and the tip of the brush, I'm connecting my inner corner to the middle of my eyelid. For cat eye eyeshadow, what I find helpful is to pretend I'm actually doing cat eye eyeliner, like as if I was using gel eyeliner or something. So I do the outer wing and then I connect it to the rest of my eyeshadow base. You definitely want to start small because if you make any mistakes, all your hard work of blending is going to be really hard to fix. So you want to start small and build up how big your wing is. Once you're done, this is how it should look. It makes your eyes look so much bigger, and it's not the end product, but we'll add the rest of the eyeshadow after we do the face. Be going into the 35i Icy Fantasy palette. I'm gonna be using the shade Get Fresh. It's my favorite beige shade for eyeshadow looks. So I'm just gonna be taking that product and packing it onto my eyelid to get as much pigment as possible and to make it look as sharp as possible. I'm also super mindful about where I put my product on my brush because if you put it on the edges, it helps you get as close as you can to the edge of your cut crease without ruining any of the blending or losing any of that clarity. I literally don't even remember what I was listening to. And now we finish the first part of our eyeshadow look. Going in with the Stila Waterproof Intense Black Eyeliner. It's a felt tip eyeliner, and I use that felt tip to my benefit by using the side and just doing small strokes. I will not be adding a wing to this look because I feel like it'll take away from the cat eye cut crease, so I'm just going to be getting as close to my lash line as possible. Now I'm applying the Maybelline Lashsensational mascara, literally my ride or die. So to really carve out the eyeshadow, I'm taking a makeup wipe and I'm cleaning up the bottom part of the eyeshadow. You have to be really careful with this because you don't want to accidentally take off your hard work. Okay, so now we're finally starting the face. So this is my ride or die primer. If you have dry skin, go buy this. It's expensive, but it's so worth it. I'm just putting a little blob on my fingers and I'm going to start patting it into my skin to really make sure it gets into my pores. And then I'm massaging it into my face. Soto. It's called gripping primer for a reason. Look at that. Look at that. My fingers are practically glued to my face. Time for my favorite foundation of all time. This is the Foundcealer by Tarte. It's got SPF 15, so you get some sunscreen in there, and I just put about a pump all over my face in dots, and then I press it into my skin using my sponge, which by the way was $1.55. I'll link it, my favorite sponge ever. But it's super important to press it into your skin and make sure that it really grabs onto the primer. And now you can see the difference between one side and the other side. Look at that redness, gone. That is full coverage. Now y'all already know Tarte Shape Tape is a go-to. It can be a little drying, so I use it sparingly, but when I use it with a creamy foundation, it works really nicely. I love the coverage. The trick now is setting my under eyes before they start creasing. So I usually use Airspun, but I find that I prefer the way it performs when I mix it with some of my Clinique powder, which can be a little drying. So together these perform really nicely. Using a slightly damp sponge, I'm going to be pressing that powder into my skin very gently. You never want to rub any of your setting powder around because that's not only going to move your foundation, it's going to move your concealer and your powder, and it's going to look really blotchy. If you hate fragrance, I don't recommend the Airspun, but I feel like the finish is so worth it, and honestly, it just goes away after about half an hour. And here's me trying to go in again and dropping my powder all over my bed. Oh my god. Rachel Garcia, ladies and gentlemen. Well, anyway, I'm going to be using some powder to set the rest of my face as well. I'm using a little bit less powder than I did for my under eyes just because I like a bit of a dewy finish. And again, I'm patting all over my face because I don't want to disturb any of my foundation. So now I'm going in with blush because I have a slight redness to my skin. I used to hate blush, but it's starting to grow on me. This specific shade is Quirky from Tarte. I'm really digging in there because it's got a natural finish, and if I want it to show, I have to put a lot of product and then tap it off so it doesn't get too focused on one area. A lot of hair, sorry. And now I'm going to start pushing this into my skin. I found that the secret to makeup is honestly just tapping and patting and then diffusing. You can't really see my blush on camera, but it's okay. The show must go on. There it is. Now you can see some of the blush. I forgot where I learned this, but I learned that if you want to look like you've been in the sun and you're just sun-kissed overall, apply it to the tip of your nose and over the bridge of your nose. A lot of work, but it comes out real cute. Now lashes, boom. Now we're going to finish our eyeshadow and define that outer cat eye. So I'm going to be going in with that first transition shade that we used right in the beginning. Now lightly using that darker shade Homebody, we're going to be defining even more. And I'm using the packing brush that we used earlier just to diffuse everything. It doesn't have any other product on it. Using that same packing brush because I'm lazy, I'm going to be extending that color with thick skin down into my lower lash line. This is going to just sort of make your eyeshadow look much more finished. I'm going to be going in with this Clinique High Impact Mascara. I feel like this is really nice for people who prefer natural looking mascaras. If you hate clump, if you hate them looking super duper spidery, this is beautiful because you could build up that definition. Pro tip, use a nude eyeliner on your waterline instead of white because nude makes it look much more natural. So because your girl got baby face, we got to go in and sculpt out those cheekbones. I'm using the PÜR Sculptor Palette, I believe it's called, and I'm sparingly using any product because I don't want any harsh lines. I just want it to look very soft. So I'm going to slowly show you how I do my strokes to really get that diffused look. So the Hangin in Hawaii palette is actually an eyeshadow palette, but I really love their shimmers and I find them so blinding, so I always use them as highlight. I really want to focus on the high points of my face, so I'm also going to be going in with my highlighter on my nose, and I go more towards the bridge. I don't really like putting it on the point so much because I really want to lengthen my nose and make it look taller. And James Charles taught me this, but I'd like to put some highlighter above my eyebrow because it sort of brings out your bone structure too. Cupid's bow, and then a little bit on the chin as well. Oh, too much on the Cupid's bow, sorry. This is personal preference, but if you don't want an all matte eyeshadow look, you can also add some to the inner corners of your eyes. So I usually don't wear lipstick, but I'm going to be going in with the Kylie matte lip in Savage. I like the color because it's not super duper far away from my natural one. So the thing about my lips is they're actually uneven. I have one side a little bit longer than the other, so it's usually a nightmare for me. So what I do is I like to smile and pull my lips to help me find where my lips would look naturally as when I'm smiling, because I smile so much anyway. And that is the complete look. Totally finished. Got the highlight, got the lip. Here's my attempt at doing some awkward YouTube girl poses. Not working out, slightly awkward, but you know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was my first makeup tutorial. It was so weird to film. I'm not the type of person to really record myself, but it was really fun. I really liked it. So I had no plan going into this, but I think it worked out really well. It's sort of unconventional, I guess, but I really like it. It's cute for one of those edgy days, or if you want to like have a photography session. At the end, I always use the Badescu spray, the facial spray with aloe, cucumber, and green tea, because I feel like it's really moisturizing and it really helps my skin with all the powder that I put on it. So spray, 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 spray. And then for longevity, I use the Tarte Stay Spray, which has a slight fragrance to it, but I feel like it's really good and it's not as harsh as the Urban Decay All Nighter. So I really like that one too. Spray, spray, spray. So yeah, this is the finished look. I really like it and I hope you enjoyed it.